Good morning. It is Thursday, June 4th, 2026. This is your Deep Dive Daily Briefing. I am your anchor, delivering a comprehensive analysis of the pivotal events that have defined the last 24 hours. We begin our broadcast on the world stage, where the fragile peace framework outlined in the Doha Agreement has shattered under a dramatic and kinetic escalation of direct military conflict. Overnight, the United States and Iran exchanged heavy fire across the Persian Gulf after American naval forces disabled an unflagging oil tanker that Washington asserted was actively attempting to breach the ongoing naval embargo. This localized engagement triggered a swift and aggressive asymmetric retaliation from Tehran, culminating in an Iranian drone and ballistic missile attack that struck Kuwait International Airport early Wednesday, causing civilian injuries and forcing the immediate diversion of all commercial flights. Simultaneously, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps confirmed that its forces targeted the headquarters of the United States Fifth Fleet in Bahrain, utilizing long-range ballistic missile strikes. As the United States military confirms it conducted immediate retaliatory air strikes against an Iranian military ground control station on Qeshm Island, the brief window of diplomatic optimism has officially closed, thrusting the Middle East back into a state of total, unmanaged warfare.
Transitioning from the front lines of direct military conflict to the broader global economy, the sudden collapse of diplomatic channels has forced international institutions to issue critical assessments of systemic resilience. The International Monetary Fund, releasing the concluding statements of its Article 4 mission to Saudi Arabia, revealed that while the kingdom's diversified logistical infrastructure and Red Sea port realignments have temporarily insulated its domestic market, the broader regional war has severely disrupted non-oil economic momentum. The IMF has projected that assuming maritime shipments through the Strait of Hormuz normalize over the coming months, Saudi gross domestic product growth will hold at a modest 2% for 2026, though average domestic inflation is now projected to climb to 2.3% due to soaring transport and insurance premiums. Concurrently, the European Central Bank and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development issued joint warnings that the renewed energy shock and the weaponization of maritime bottlenecks are actively degrading the global economic outlook, driving a sharp escalation in downside risks across both advanced and emerging manufacturing hubs.
In the realm of finance, this severe geopolitical fragmentation has triggered a profound structural shift in international capital markets and sovereign reserve strategies. The European Central Bank has released its landmark June 2026 report on the international role of the euro, revealing that forces of global fragmentation are driving central banks to demand gold and non-traditional currencies at the fastest pace in over a decade. According to the ECB's extensive findings, while the euro remains the second most important currency in the international monetary system with a stable 20% share, the continuous escalation of trade and military friction has created a pronounced atypical cross-asset correlation. Specifically, during recent risk-off episodes, the United States dollar has experienced brief periods of depreciation while Treasury yields rose, reflecting deep institutional anxieties over expanding tariff threats and Western sanction regimes. Consequently, international debt issuance denominated in euros surged by almost 50% as foreign corporations rushed to capitalize on favorable cost differentials and historically tight spreads relative to a volatile dollar ecosystem.
Turning our attention to the technology sector, the worsening credit constraints and physical energy shocks are forcing computing giants to pioneer global competency programs to sustain the artificial intelligence supercycle amidst a tightening workforce. In a major corporate alignment announced on Wednesday, IBM officially launched its Global AI Builders Challenge, a widespread initiative built around its new generative software development partner, IBM Bob. This global program is designed to immediately expand advanced AI and automated software engineering availability to 20,000 post-secondary and university institutions worldwide. IBM's strategic push comes as a response to comprehensive corporate audits revealing a massive structural gap in the global labor market, where multinational employers increasingly expect incoming graduates to possess native AI orchestrating skills, yet traditional academic institutions lack the high-performance computing access and data infrastructure necessary to provide practical, hands-on training before students enter a capacity-constrained tech workforce.
Finally, we look at the logistics and raw material networks that serve as the vital arteries of global commerce, which are now aggressively seeking sovereign, state-sponsored transformations to survive the destruction of traditional international trade. In Ottawa, the Government of Canada has officially advanced its forest sector transformation strategy, following the final report released by its specialized federal task force. Recognizing that the ongoing Middle East war and parallel geopolitical fractures have triggered prohibitive maritime freight rates and severe supply shocks across industrial fiber chains, Canada's Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources has initiated a coordinated Team Canada approach. Over the next 48 hours, the Canadian Council of Forest Ministers will meet to finalize a sweeping legislative framework to modernize domestic extraction operations, attract massive private capital infusions, and rapidly diversify export markets away from vulnerable maritime corridors, effectively shifting the nation's primary material supply lines toward localized, high-resilience North American trade networks.
In summary, the global landscape is defined by a severe escalation of the Iran war featuring missile strikes on U.S. bases and Kuwait's airport, occurring just as the IMF warns of a significant disruption to Middle Eastern economic momentum. The ECB reports a major structural shift toward euro-denominated debt amid global financial fragmentation, while IBM deploys its AI development partner to 20,000 universities worldwide, and the Canadian government launches an emergency transformation of its raw material sectors to insulate domestic industry from disrupted international trade lanes. Based on the current trajectory, I predict that the dramatic exchange of ballistic missile fire between the United States and Iran over the last 24 hours will lock in record-high maritime insurance premiums and energy costs for the remainder of 2026. By executing direct kinetic strikes against the U.S. Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain and civilian infrastructure in Kuwait, Tehran has signaled that it has entirely abandoned the administrative constraints of the Doha framework. This total collapse of diplomacy means that the 50% surge in euro-denominated bond issuance reported by the ECB is not a temporary anomaly, but the beginning of a massive institutional migration away from dollar-denominated assets as multinational corporations seek shelter from weaponized Western sanctions. Consequently, the Federal Reserve under Kevin Warsh will face a compounding dilemma. It must keep interest rates highly restrictive to combat sticky energy-driven inflation, even as global capital structurally fragments away from traditional United States debt instruments.